Colin Tincknell, thanks for joining me. What are your main concerns about the euthanasia bill or voluntary assisted dying bill that will eventually get to the Legislative Council or the Upper House in Western Australia?
Hi Jane, how are you? Yeah, I do have some concerns. I think my main concern is the way the bill has been handled since it came into Parliament. It's now in the lower house, and I think the main thing that I have a concern with is it's being rushed, Jane. There's no need to have this bill rushed. This is a very important bill. We should be taking our time. All the politicians, there's 95 of us in both the lower house and upper house, these people take this bill very seriously and they should be listened to, and we should be taking our time so we can get this bill right.
Well, it really is literally a matter of life and death, isn't it? I was interested to see the Labor MP for Girrawheen, so the government's side, Margaret Quirk, said that this was the unfurling a white flag of surrender. She said the bill offered West Australians fewer safeguards than those contained in the Victorian legislation, and she has criticised the government's consultation process. Would you criticise the government's consultation process?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would. I would criticise their consultation process, but I'd also criticise the pressure they put on the parliamentarians, sitting till 5:30 in the morning and doing 20-hour sessions and rushing it through. It's like bullying attitude, and there's no need for that. So
are you saying that the government is bullying politicians into passing this legislation?
I believe they are. I think it's the wrong behaviour. But look, Jane, they've got form on this. This is how they've acted on many bills in the past, and I don't think they've really taken it seriously that this is such an important bill that it can't be bullied. People need to get this right, Jane. This is a matter of life or death.
That's a pretty big allegation. There are others who've told me they've felt bullied, but that's been off the record. You're saying on the record...
Yes, I am.
That the government of Western Australia is bullying politicians to get their voluntary assisted dying legislation through?
Yes.
Is it just because they're having all-night sittings like they did? And for people following at home, we've had the second reading speeches. We're now into consideration in detail. There are 185 items up for consideration. 50 got passed through in that all-night sitting that ended at 5:20 on Friday morning. Is it just the timing, trying to get it through quickly? When you talk about bullying, is it the rush that's the bullying part of it? Or is it something else, or is there more to it? Look,
there's more to it, but having that sort of, sitting those hours, we're not going to get quality decisions. Most people, these 95 politicians, work very hard. I know the public doesn't believe that, but that's the fact. Jane, I've been working for 51 years. It's only been the last 2 years in Parliament. So that's 49 years I've been working in private enterprise. And I know that the hours I do, and I imagine it's pretty much the same for my colleagues, are similar, and they are working long hours. They would do 14, 15-hour days, just a normal day. Now they're being asked to sit even extra time. And there's no reason for that. We need to take our time and get this bill 100% correct.
I'm paraphrasing Margaret Quirk, who made that famous quote about rushing slowly. She wants to take time and look at all of these items, and she is a member of the government. She's the Labor member for Girrawheen. Her concerns particularly around palliative care. Now, we know that palliative care is not what it should be in this state. What's your view on her concerns?
Palliative care, it's a very valid concern. I think it's been quoted that One Nation's been sort of holding out for palliative care to improve before we give our okay on VAD. That's not the case. We would like to see palliative care improved. There are many people, especially in the country, Jane, that just have got no chance of ever getting palliative care. Now, palliative care is about that caring, is about that, looking after our elders when they're getting close to the end of their life. If we really do care and want our elders to have a comfortable finish towards the end of their life, then we need to be able to improve our palliative care. We have the worst state in Australia for palliative care. And that's not to say our palliative care is bad, it's just that so many West Australians, especially regional West Australians, can't get access to it.
And so this is wrapped up in what some people, when they talk about the debate and criticising it, they're saying we want to ensure that people don't have a painful death And critics of this bill and the rush are saying that's good palliative care. If you manage people's pain and look after them, that is good palliative care. But because there isn't enough palliative care, the public think that voluntary assisted dying is the only option. Is that your experience of the public's attitude?
You are spot on, Jane. That's very well put. That is it. I mean, palliative care is a part of that caring and looking after our loved ones when they get towards the end of their life. VAD is not the only option. This is, if that's going to be part of the final option is what the government's looking at, then maybe so, if that's what the politicians vote for. However, we should be caring for these people all through that process. And at the moment, they're left with very little options. I'm talking about the poor old patients. They are left with very few options. The other thing I have concern with is that doctors are going to be advising people that VAD, voluntary assisted dying, is an option. Well, that's not the way they do it in Victoria, and it's not the way they do it in many other places. That's not a good thing, Jane.
Doctors can raise it. In this legislation in Western Australia, doctors can raise the issue with a patient,
yes.
Whereas in Victoria that is not allowed.
No, and it isn't in many other countries too. So the thing is, Jane, doctors are... people go to their doctor because they trust their doctor. Doctors can make mistakes. I had a mother-in-law who was given 3 months to live, and the doctor, if VAD had been available 14, 15 years ago, my mother-in-law may have been told by the doctor that this is an option. She may have taken that. The facts are she lived for another 13 years, Jane. This is where the doctors can overly influence a decision by a patient, especially when that patient is at their lowest ebb or they're not well. But patients make recoveries and doctors make misdiagnoses. That is a fact.
We've seen in Victoria that the legislation has parked. Dr Chris Moy has spoken to Peter Credlin on Sky News. He's also going to join me on my radio program. He says that the funding model as it stands for voluntary assisted dying means that roughly per patient, if 150 patients choose to end their life in that way, the funding is around $10,000. Whereas across the state, generally speaking, the funding for palliative care is around $2,000.
That's a bad
Have you seen those statistics out of Victoria?
I have. I haven't been able to verify them or back them up, but Mr Moyes, he's well respected, and so I have no need to doubt them, but I just would like to back that up before I made any decisions based on those figures. All
right. So have you got any other concerns about any of the legislation that will come before you in the Legislative Council?
I suppose my concern is give the politicians time. They need to be able to speak to all sides of the argument. They need to be able to get their heads across a lot of detail. There's a lot of... if we're going to put this bill through, if the bill goes through, we want to get this bill correct. Otherwise, there's going to be circumstances and mistakes, which is going to cost people's lives. We don't want that. We want this to be done properly. If the bill doesn't go through, so be it. That's what Parliament chose at this stage. They don't have enough confidence that this VAD bill should go through. That's the will. These people are elected by the people of West Australia. That's their job. Allow them to get on with their job, but give them the time and the resources to do it properly.
Have you made your mind up yet?
No, I haven't, Jane. I'll make up my mind once I've got everything in front of me and I'm sitting there and I have to make that vote right at the end, but I'm going to give myself time. This is a very important decision. I'm going to take my time and try and get it right. Now, when you say try and get it right, I have to try and get it right for the people that I represent and myself, and that's what I'll do.
Colin Tincknell from One Nation in Western Australia, thanks for joining us on the front page tonight.
Thank you, Jane.